Poor circulation triples your fall risk after 60, and almost nobody is warned about it until something goes wrong. For many people, that something happens quietly at night, on the way to the bathroom, when the legs don't respond the way they used to. Have you noticed your legs feeling heavier than before, your feet staying cold even in warm rooms, or that quiet unsteadiness when you stand up, the moment where you instinctively reach for furniture, just in case? Here's the part most people never hear. This isn't just getting older, and it isn't something that always takes weeks or months to start improving. In many people, blood vessels can respond much faster than expected when the right compounds show up, sometimes within hours. And no, this isn't about curing disease, throwing away medication, or buying a supplement online. If you're on blood pressure medication, blood thinners, or managing diabetes, I'll explain how this fits safely, not blindly. In this video, I'm going to show you what begins happening inside your legs within the first 24 hours of using one common drink the right way, why warmth can return, why tingling often fades, and why so many people keep struggling despite doing everything they were told was right. The reason is simple. Circulation after 60 follows different rules than it did at 40. I'll also move quickly through the 10 most common circulation drinks people try, because most of them don't deserve more than a few seconds. Some barely help at all, some quietly work against you, and one has been shown in studies to widen blood vessels significantly, nearly 30% in some people, which can be the difference between shuffling carefully in the dark and walking with real confidence. And here's the twist most people don't expect. This drink is probably already in your kitchen, but almost everyone uses it in a way that limits its effect. Within the first day of improving circulation, the changes aren't dramatic or sudden. They're subtle but unmistakable if you know what to notice. It often starts with warmth creeping back into the feet, not a rush, just a steady return that almost feels unfamiliar after months, sometimes years, of cold toes. Then something else shifts. The tight, heavy feeling in the calves eases just enough that walking feels less like effort and more like movement again. That faint tingling or buzzing many people quietly ignore begins to settle down. This is where most people miss what's happening because they're waiting for a miracle, but the real signal is simpler. Your legs stop feeling dead and start feeling responsive again. That change matters more than people realize. When blood reaches muscles and nerves properly, balance improves in small, practical ways. Standing up feels steadier. Turns feel more controlled. Those nighttime steps don't feel quite as uncertain. And here's what most people still don't realize. These early sensations aren't random. They're signs that your blood vessels are finally relaxing instead of staying clenched. In the next part, I'll explain why that shift can happen faster than people expect, and why it becomes the turning point for everything that follows. Here's where this gets uncomfortable for a lot of people, because the solution isn't exotic, and it isn't something you need a prescription for. In fact, there's a very good chance you already have it. You've just never connected it to your legs. The real problem isn't access. It's how it's being used. Most people use it at the wrong time of day, combine it with foods that quietly block its effect, or unknowingly cancel what it's trying to do, then assume it did nothing and move on. And that's why circulation feels so confusing after 60. You can genuinely follow advice you've heard for years and still watch your legs grow colder, heavier, and less reliable over time. Not because you failed, but because circulation after 60 doesn't respond the way it used to. Once you understand what's actually happening inside aging blood vessels, why they tighten, when they relax, and what signals they respond to, this finally starts to make sense. So let me show you what's really happening inside your legs right now, because this is the part almost no one explains clearly. After 60, your blood vessels gradually lose one of their most important signals, the signal that tells them when to relax and stay open. When that signal weakens, vessels don't just slow down, they begin to tighten and stiffen. That signal has a name, nitric oxide, and when your body produces less of it, arteries stop behaving like flexible hoses that adjust to movement. They start acting more like rigid pipes that resist flow, especially in areas farthest from the heart, like the calves, ankles, and feet. When this happens, blood struggles to reach the tissues that need it most. Oxygen delivery drops. Waste products linger longer than they should, and the result isn't sharp pain or dramatic warning signs. It's heaviness, fatigue, numbness, legs that hesitate before they respond, even during simple movements. This change doesn't happen overnight. It builds slowly, year by year, often unnoticed, until balance feels less reliable and movement feels less automatic. And once you see this clearly, something important becomes obvious. Circulation problems don't feel stubborn because you're doing nothing. They feel stubborn because the right signal isn't reaching the vessels at the right time. And that's where the real risk hides, because poor circulation doesn't stop at cold feet or tired legs. When blood flow drops, muscles don't get enough oxygen to stay strong. They fatigue faster. They recover slower. That dull, heavy ache many people accept as just age quietly settles in. Nerves are affected too. They depend on steady blood flow to send clear signals. As circulation worsens, sensation fades, numbness, tingling, delayed reactions, often without pain or warning. Balance suffers. Timing feels off. The body's built-in alerts become less reliable. And this is exactly why restoring the right signal at the right moment becomes the turning point for everything that follows. What concerns specialists most isn't just that vessels narrow over time. It's what happens inside them when blood begins moving more slowly. When circulation drops, tiny disruptions in flow start to appear. Not something you feel day to day, not something you wake up noticing. You notice it later, when a foot doesn't lift quite high enough, when a step feels uncertain, when your body doesn't correct itself as quickly as it once did. And once you see that circulation loss sets off this entire chain reaction, something important becomes clear. Simply moving more isn't always enough. You're often told to walk more, elevate your legs, drink more water. Those things can help a little, but they mostly manage symptoms. They don't fix what's actually causing the problem. Walking with poor circulation is like pushing water through a pinched hose. Elevation helps briefly, until gravity takes over again. And none of these approaches restore the signal your arteries rely on to relax and stay open. So people do everything right. They stay consistent. They follow instructions. And still, they watch their legs grow colder, weaker, and less dependable over time. That's not a lack of effort. It's a mismatch between the solution and the problem. Because when the real issue is a gradual drop in the body's ability to produce the signal that keeps vessels open, surface-level fixes can only go so far. Here's the good news, and this is where the story changes. That decline isn't permanent. Once you understand how the body can be gently nudged to produce that signal again, safely and naturally, the entire strategy for improving leg circulation shifts. Your blood vessels don't need to be forced open. They need the raw materials to restart a process that's been fading quietly for years. Certain everyday drinks contain specific compounds the body can convert into nitric oxide, a signal that tells arteries when to relax. Nothing exotic, nothing mysterious. When those compounds enter your system, vessels become more responsive. They begin to relax the way they were designed to, sometimes sooner than people expect, especially in the legs, where distance and gravity usually work against you. This process is called vasodilation. All it really means is that blood starts flowing more smoothly, less resistance, less struggle. And here's how people know it's happening. The heaviness eases, calves feel less tight. Cramping becomes less frequent. Feet begin to warm, not all at once, but enough to notice. For many people, these changes show up the same day, not as a dramatic event, but as a clear difference. Standing up feels lighter. The first steps feel more natural. and that's the first sign that vessels are opening instead of resisting flow. This is the moment when circulation stops feeling like an unsolvable part of aging and starts looking like a biological process that can be supported again once you know which drinks actually trigger that response. But the longer-term effects are where things really begin to change. With steadier circulation, muscles start receiving oxygen consistently again. Nerves send clearer signals. Tiny blood vessels that had gone quiet begin doing their job. Over time, walking distances increase. Balance feels more dependable. Everyday movements, climbing stairs, turning, walking at night, require less conscious effort. This isn't a temporary boost. It's the groundwork for reliable legs again. And now that you understand what's possible, the next question becomes unavoidable. Which drinks actually support this process, and which ones waste your time or quietly work against you? This is why the next part matters so much. Not all circulation drinks are created equal. Treating them as if they are is one of the biggest mistakes people make. Some options sound healthy but barely move the needle. Others help so slowly that most people give up before noticing anything meaningful. And a few are surprisingly counterproductive, loaded with sugar or combinations that interfere with circulation instead of supporting it. That's why I've ranked 10 of the most common drinks people use for leg circulation, starting with the ones that do almost nothing, and ending with the option that most consistently produces noticeable improvement. This ranking isn't about trends or marketing. It's about speed, effectiveness, safety, and cost. Because if a drink doesn't help your legs feel different within a reasonable window, it's probably not earning its place in your routine. Let's start at the bottom of the list, because this is where most people genuinely believe they're doing the right thing. Number 10, plain water. Staying hydrated absolutely matters. Dehydration thickens the blood and can make circulation worse, so drinking enough water helps prevent problems from accelerating. But here's what often gets misunderstood. Water alone rarely improves leg circulation after 60. The reason is simple. Water doesn't contain the compounds your body needs to tell blood vessels to relax and open wider. It supports basic function, but it doesn't actively trigger the circulation response your legs are missing. Think of it like oil in a car engine. Necessary, protective, but it won't fix a deeper mechanical issue. So yes, drink water. Just don't expect it to bring warmth back to your feet or noticeably improve balance on its own. That's why water sits low on this list, important but insufficient. Just above water is a drink many people trust for heart health. Number 9, green tea. Green tea does have benefits. It contains plant compounds that support overall vessel health, but when it comes to leg circulation, its impact is far weaker than most people expect. Any benefit tends to build slowly, over months, and often isn't strong enough to push blood consistently down to the calves, ankles, and feet, where distance and gravity already work against you. That's why many people drink green tea faithfully and still notice little change in cold feet, leg heaviness, or nighttime cramping. And this pattern, good intentions, little payoff, is exactly what you'll see again with the next drink people swear by, even though it sounds far more powerful on paper. There's one more thing few people consider with green tea. Green tea naturally contains caffeine, and in some people, especially later in life, caffeine can briefly cause blood vessels to tighten rather than relax. That doesn't make green tea harmful, but it does make its circulation benefit inconsistent. So while green tea supports general health, it simply doesn't act fast or strongly enough to restore leg circulation after 60. That's why it ranks just above water, a good habit, but underpowered for improving balance, walking confidence, or cold feet. Number 8, tart cherry juice. Moving up the list, we come to tart cherry juice, and this is where things begin to sound more promising. Tart cherry contains compounds that reduce inflammation inside blood vessel walls. Over time, that can make arteries slightly more flexible, which is why some people notice mild relief in stiffness or aching. The limitation is speed and focus. These effects build slowly, often over many weeks, and they don't directly activate the main signal blood vessels rely on to open fully. So while inflammation may improve, circulation to the lower legs often changes very little. There's also a practical issue many people overlook. Tart cherry juice contains a fair amount of natural sugar. For individuals sensitive to blood sugar swings, that can temporarily work against circulation, creating a one-step forward, one-step back effect. So tart cherry juice isn't useless. But for improving leg circulation later in life, it tends to be slow and inconsistent, which is why it sits low on this list. Number 7, pomegranate juice. Moving up, we reach pomegranate juice, which is often described as a circulation miracle, and to be fair, it is more powerful than tart cherry. Pomegranate helps protect nitric oxide from breaking down too quickly. In simple terms, once your body produces that circulation signal, pomegranate helps it last longer. That's why some people notice warmer legs and improved blood flow when they use it consistently. But there are trade-offs most people aren't warned about. Pomegranate juice is very concentrated and naturally high in sugar. For people whose blood sugar control isn't ideal, that sugar load can temporarily blunt circulation benefits, even while helping over the long term. There's also the cost factor. High-quality pomegranate juice is expensive, and using it daily adds up quickly. Over time, that makes consistency harder, and consistency matters for circulation. So while pomegranate juice does help more than the drinks below it, it's not especially efficient or practical for most people to rely on long term. That's why it lands in the middle of the list, effective, but weighed down by sugar and cost. And now, as we move higher, this is where things finally start to feel different. Number 6, cocoa, unsweetened. Next up is properly prepared cocoa, and this is where circulation improvements often become noticeable faster. Real cocoa, not sugary mixes, contains compounds that help stimulate nitric oxide production, supporting blood vessel relaxation. The challenge is execution. For cocoa to work, it needs to be unsweetened cocoa powder, prepared correctly and used consistently. When done right, many people notice warmer feet and less tight calves, but sweetening it the wrong way cancels the benefit. That's why cocoa ranks above most juices, effective when used correctly, but not the easiest habit to maintain long term. Now we move into the group where circulation changes stop feeling subtle and start feeling clearly noticeable. Number 5, watermelon juice. Watermelon works for a very specific reason. It's rich in a compound your body can convert directly into nitric oxide, helping it bypass some of the age-related slowdowns that interfere with circulation. When that conversion happens, blood vessels relax more fully, and flow to the legs improves in ways many people actually notice. For some, warmth returns sooner than expected. The heavy, achy feeling eases. Walking feels less strained and more fluid. Another advantage is tolerance. Because watermelon is mostly water, it's generally gentler on blood sugar than many other juices. The downside is practicality. Fresh juice isn't always convenient, and many store-bought versions add sugars that undo the benefit. When used fresh and correctly, watermelon is one of the first drinks that delivers clear circulation relief, which is why it earns a spot near the top, even if it isn't the most efficient option yet. And unlike juices, this next one does it without a sugar load. Number 4, hibiscus tea. Just above watermelon is a drink almost no one associates with circulation: hibiscus tea. Hibiscus supports the inner lining of blood vessels, the layer that decides whether arteries stay tight or relax. When that lining functions better, vessels respond more easily and blood flows more freely, especially to the legs. With regular use, many people notice fewer nighttime leg aches, less cramping, and feet that stay warm longer. Hibiscus is also practical. It's affordable, easy to prepare, realistic to use daily. One note to be mindful of. Hibiscus can lower blood pressure, so anyone already on medication should adjust thoughtfully. Used correctly, hibiscus delivers steady, sugar-free circulation support, which is why it ranks higher than anything we've covered so far. And now we move into the group where circulation improvement becomes hard to ignore. Number 3, celery juice. Celery works differently. It contains compounds your body converts into nitric oxide through a process that begins right in the mouth, which is why timing and preparation matter more here than with most drinks. When used correctly, celery juice helps blood vessels relax more fully, allowing blood to reach the legs with much less resistance. For many people, the change is obvious. Feet feel warmer, standing feels less tight. Walking feels smoother and more controlled. This isn't subtle support, it's a noticeable shift. The downside is convenience. You need fresh celery, a juicer, and a willingness to tolerate the taste, but effectiveness doesn't depend on comfort. When used fresh and consistently, celery juice delivers fast, sugar-free circulation support, which is why it ranks this high. Number 2, arugula smoothie. Right behind it is arugula, and this is where circulation support reaches a very high level. Arugula is one of the most concentrated natural sources of dietary nitrates available. The body converts these into nitric oxide with impressive efficiency. The result is not just mild relaxation. Arteries become far more responsive, allowing blood to move to the legs with much less resistance. When blended into a smoothie, many people notice fewer cramps, warmer feet, and legs that feel more responsive when standing and walking. The reason this isn't number 1 is practicality. It requires fresh greens, preparation, and consistency. But biologically, arugula delivers one of the strongest natural circulation responses available, which is why only one drink outranks it, and why that final choice stands alone, not because it's trendy, but because it works with aging blood vessels more directly than anything else on this list. And that brings us to the top of the list. Number 1, beetroot juice, the most consistent and reliable option for improving leg circulation when other approaches haven't delivered. Beets are uniquely rich in natural nitrates. When you drink beetroot juice, the body converts those nitrates into nitric oxide with remarkable efficiency, even later in life. That's why the response tends to be noticeable and dependable. For many people, blood vessels often begin to relax within hours. Blood reaches the legs more easily, feet feel warmer, cramping eases, walking feels smoother, not forced. What truly sets beetroot juice apart is consistency. With regular use, circulation stabilizes instead of fading. Used simply, pure beetroot juice, no added sugar, ideally on an empty stomach, it gives aging blood vessels exactly what they've been missing, in a form the body already knows how to use. That's why it sits alone at number 1, not because it's trendy, but because it works with how circulation actually functions after 60. How to use it? Keep this simple. Start with beetroot juice as your foundation. About 8 ounces first thing in the morning on an empty stomach before food, coffee, or supplements. Later in the day, if you want added support, choose one helper drink, hibiscus tea or celery juice, not both. If you want an occasional boost, rotate in an arugula smoothie a few times per week. That's enough. Most people notice changes in stages, warmth first, then less heaviness, then steadier walking. The timing varies, but the pattern is consistent when the signal is repeated. Avoid these common mistakes. Don't take nitrate-rich drinks with heavy meals. Avoid mouthwash right before or after. It can interfere with the mouth process your body uses to convert nitrates. And avoid processed versions with added sugar. When these details are handled correctly, the difference is often dramatic. Here's what this really means: declining circulation isn't an unavoidable part of aging. It's often a system that's missing the signals it needs. Your body hasn't forgotten how to support steady movement. It just needs the right materials again. So here's a simple challenge. For the next 30 days, start each morning with beetroot juice on an empty stomach. Pay attention to how your legs feel when you stand, walk, and move at night. Don't chase perfection, just stay consistent. And let your own body show you what's possible. If this helped you understand your legs better and what you can actually do about it, stay with us here at Prime Senior Health. We share clear, practical guidance to help you stay steady, mobile, and independent as your body changes. One last safeguard before we close: these drinks support circulation. They don't replace medical care. If you're on blood pressure medication, blood thinners, or have a history of kidney stones, mention this approach to your doctor before making it daily. Start simple, stay steady. When something is working, you won't need numbers to prove it. You'll feel it: reliable legs, steadier steps, and confidence you can trust again.